Okay, Jason Momo, JM on the Fly. Today I'm going to show you my pencil poppers. JM pencil poppers. These little guys here, pretty neat. This is basically what I do is I take a dime, cut out a piece of foam. It's about 3/16 foam, and that's how I determine my size of my poppers. That's a dime. There's a couple that are tied using a nickel size. There's a couple tied that have a quarter size. And then I got one that have a dime there in the bottom. And I got a big, about a 50-cent piece or something that I use for the top of that. Getting the big pencil poppers. Anyway, let me show you how I tie these things. Come back down to the vise here and show you what I'm using. I got these articulated shanks that I'm using. There's all different sizes and kinds. Let me show you what I do here. I'm going to take a 3/0 SC15 Gamakatsu hook, and I'm going to place it on the shank. Just like that. I'm going to set this sucker up in a vise like this. Tighten up on the knob. And again, you're just using the shank, in the vise, not the hook. Put the tail end of that in, tighten it down real good, and now you're ready to tie on that. Let me see if I can't get this camera zoomed in a little bit more on what we're doing here, so you can see the process. Okay, I'm going to start with some GSP thread. In fact, before I even do that, I'm going to take this and I'm going to twist this. Basically, this eye right here is standing straight up and this one's standing this way. So I'm going to just take this and twist it so they're standing the same way. Just take your pliers, rotate your vise, put a twist in it so they're right in line with each other. And that's pretty much it. It may have a little bit of a bend to it, but you'll straighten that out as you tie it, and it really doesn't matter. Then we're going to start with our thread up here. I like to get a good little wrap up here near the neck. Then I'm going to add a little bit of super glue. Tie that into the neck. Let that soak in really good. This will prevent your thread as you're pulling back the hairs from sliding back as you're pulling back the deer hair. Again, just come back, catch the next one. It's nice to have these shanks straight up and down. It just seems to have a lot more rigidity when you're done with it. Come to the back. Do the same thing here. Just got to add a little bit of super glue and secure that in. Now we're going to take some feathers, and of course my feathers, I had them all set up here, but they fell on the floor, so we'll have to restack them. Hackle feathers, saddle feathers. I'm just going to line up 1, 2, 3. Guess we'll do 4 brown, like that. And then I'm going to place one. I'm going to put 3 gray right on top of them. I'm going to try and put them in a way that my brown tips are just maybe a little bit taller than the gray ones. I'm going to tie that little stack on the opposing side of the hook and tie them right in. They could tie it right into that super glue base that you have there. Take the excess, trim that off, do the same thing on the other side. Take 1, 2, 3. Four browns, and then 1, 2, 3 grays, and again pinch that together, put that on this side. Just like that. And you can make it tails as long as you want. It's all personal preference. I tie them all different ways depending on what I'm doing. Clip off the excess. And you got a pretty decent tail there. Again, you can see it's just a pile of feathers. That's it. Basically like a deceiver. I'm going to take, take 2 more. I think I just want a little bit, maybe just a little bit more in here. I'm just going to throw a couple more browns in right now. I'm going to let them come right up over the top and the back and tie them in. There we go. And soften that up just a little bit with a couple grays. And the grays I'm going to tie in, and I'm going to stay just short of the tip of the brown. And there we got your basic tail. Again, I put a little super glue on this. And then tie that all down into the fibers, and you'll see they'll push right in, and you end up with a beautiful tail ready to wiggle and do some damage. Next, I'm going to take, this is a foxtail brush I made. Basically I just made it by spinning foxtail, but you can use anything you want. Going to put a little bit of a skirt on this, and I'm going to tie this in right on that tail bump. I like to keep that tail bump right in about the 1/4 inch area. Work it front. I'm going to just do 1 wrap with this because it's very, very brushy. I don't need much more than that. I gotta come up and tie that off. This is a pretty heavy tied brush. Gonna keep some pressure on that. And I'm gonna run my brush to comb these fibers back. Many as I could get picked out. Then we're just going to pull everything back and finish this collar. And you'll know you did everything right if everything splays back nice. If it's not all splayed back nice, you may have to go back further with the thread wraps. But that looks really good. And that's pretty much the basic tail that I'm putting on these. When that gets wet, that'll all dance and do everything else. Now let's get to the popper part. I'm using caribou. You can use regular deer, whatever you want, but you have to have long enough fibers. When you get into some of them bigger ones, you'll even need longer fibers. So just make sure you have the right size and the right length of caribou. This is going to be, I'm going to do a dime size here, so this hair will be more than long enough. Concentrate here on the very first bundle that you put on, because it's going to be right on that hump. And I like to do 2 loose wraps like that. And I like to train this the whole way around. So it's the whole way around. They just hit it. It'll flare. Work it back. And come front. That's your first one. Next one. Again, about the same amount of hair. It's another nice thing about this caribou. It doesn't have the under fibers in there that much. There's not hardly anything to clean out, so it's really nice working with for these. Again, each wrap you'll be cutting a section, combing out the fibers, spinning it, and then pushing it back onto the thread. Now, if you look at the different patterns, see how tight this one is? See how tight that is? And you see how open this one is. If you can see the grain. So there's a big difference between the two. And that's really just how tight you pack your hair. And it's the same process the whole way up the shank. Okay, and it looks like you get one more bundle on here. Again, last bundle I want to make sure is really nice, because that's the one that defines everything. Push that hair back. And remember, you need just enough of length on the shank. It looks like I could get one more in there, and I'm going to. Just like that. So it's nice and full. But remember, you still got to get that foam, head on. So tighten everything up. That looks pretty good. Looks like I have enough. I'll be able to cover up my looks like I'll be able to get that foam on and everything will be perfect. So we're just going to finish off or whip finish it right here. Whip finishing doesn't have to be the crazy art, because you're going to be gluing this whole thing then later on anyway. So just get a good finish on there so it's going to hold. And if you're not sure about your whip finish, do a double. And again, basically take a piece of foam. This happens to be like 3/16 thick, somewhere in the 3/16 to 1/4 inch thick. Cut around a dime. In this case, you could cut around whatever size popper head you want, or how much push you want. I cut out a dime size. I take my scissors, I find the center stick my scissors through there like that, snip a hole through. That way this will fit right on. You can test it beforehand, and that should look just like that. Okay, and you can see. Pull this off. Hold it in this. I like to hold it in the same hand the way it went on. Super glue it. Get that whole thing saturated on that side. And we're going to line that right up again. Stick it on. I take my pliers, I push in, and then I pinch, and I pull the hair back over the top so that whole thing could cure. So you can see that. All I'm doing is pushing that front, and that super glue will just seize on there. And we're getting close. Now all we got is the trimming. Yeah, that'll sit just like that. Now the trimming's pretty simple. Once you get used to it, and take a nice little razor blade, and we're just going to glide over top of this and trim out that shape that we want. So I'm just going to take it right on top of the foam head. And of course you get better at this the more you do. And we're going to come straight back. Try not to hit my foxtail too much. And I'll define this a little bit later. I just want to get a cylinder shape right now. I've gotten to the point where I could pretty much do most of these in one chop, but you're not going to get that when you first do it. So I want to show you the easy way to do it. And that's basically, you see how we just made like a cylinder shape. So the whole thing now is basically cylinder shaped. Now we're going to just taper it back. And what we could do is to get some of these fox fibers, so we aren't trimming them, just kind of separate them like that. Watch that hook back there. Okay, so now I'm going to put a little taper to it. So I take the same razor blade, and as I come back, I'm going to actually come down into the project. Okay, and I'm going to do that the whole way around. And you see how we're just slowly building the taper like that. We got some areas that look a little squared off. No problem. Round them off a little bit. Looking pretty good. And you can sit there and screw with it all you want, but basically you got your nice popper shape and you're all good to go. Take this out of the vise, you of course can clean up your skirt the way it's supposed to lay. Now we got one fiber there that's just hanging a little bit tight, so that's an easy fix, because all we need to do is pinch that down, put ourselves a little bit of glue up in the area. But basically that's it. Pencil popper, beautiful little fly. If you want to go with the extended body off of this now, you can see that's the back part. You just add another shank and you go to a thicker area. JM Pencil Popper. JM on the fly, and I am out of here.